Mario Kart entered the third dimension in 1996 with the release of Mario Kart 64. This title greatly expands both the gameplay and world of Mario Kart to better resemble the series that we know today. Much like Super Mario Kart before it, this game features 8 playable characters, 6 of which are returning from that title: Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Toad, and Yoshi. Donkey Kong is introduced in this game to replace his assumed father, DK Jr., who obviously isn't around anymore. On the other hand, we have Wario, replacing the Koopa Troopa who previously held his slot. According to the Nintendo Power trading card set from Mario Kart 64, Wario is supposedly driving a kart that he stole from Koopa Troopa, explaining the latter's absence in the game. However, I don't think that Nintendo Power is always a very trustworthy source, so I take this statement with a spoonful of salt. And if you haven't seen my Super Mario Kart video yet, I suggest watching it, as I'll be referring back to that game a lot in this video, so feel free to check it out and then come back later. Also, major shoutouts to Project Marioverse, whose notes on the Mario Kart tracks I referenced in the creation of this script, as well as friend of the channel LP Master 6, whose gameplay I'm using through a majority of this video. The game introduces 4 new cups, each featuring 4 original tracks, for a total of 16 racing tracks in the game. 4 of these, Mario Circuit, Koopa Beach, Bowser Castle, and Rainbow Road, are directly returning concepts from the previous game. I don't have much information on Mario Circuit or Bowser Castle. Assumedly, one takes place in the Mushroom Kingdom, while the other is in one of the castles that Bowser owns. However, the new Rainbow Road we have a little bit more on. This track once again takes place on a rainbow road in the sky, but this time it is over a city rather than the countryside. Given the game this track appears in, this is likely Toad City. That is, the same city as we see in the track Toad's Turnpike. The city is named on the sides of the buses in Mario Kart 8, and is the only named city to appear in this game. As such, I'm assuming that every big city shown in the 64 tracks take place here. That includes the Skyscraper battle course. Koopa Troopa Beach is a follow-up to the Koopa Beach from the original game. We finally get an origin for the name, as the beach was apparently named for a Troopa-shaped rock that can be found along the beach. Due to the name being that of a specific place, I feel fairly confident having this be the same location as in Super Mario Kart. The Troopa Rock would appear in a number of other games, including most notably, Sunshine Airport in Mario Kart 8. This likely means that the beach is somewhere near Isle Delfino. While they don't use the same name as any previous tracks, Choco Mountain and Banshee Boardwalk are also closely related tracks from Super, matching up with Choco Island and Ghost Valley, placing these tracks in Choco Island from Super Mario World and Boo Woods respectively. Given the continual use of desert-themed cold areas, Frappe, Snowland, and Sherbet Land are likely close to Vanilla Lake. The Japanese manual description of Sherbet Land implies that we can determine its location by looking at the penguins that appear on the track. The manual suggests that it might be the South Pole, but not with any certainty. And, given that these are the same penguins as in Super Mario 64, this likely means that the tracks can be found somewhere near Snowman's Land and Cool Cool Mountain. Sherbet Land is also the English name of one of the worlds in Wario Land 1. However, their Japanese names are somewhat different, so I don't think it was an intentional reference. From there, we get into the tracks without any direct relation to Super Mario Kart, such as Luigi Raceway. This is a fairly straightforward track whose biggest landmark is this big Luigi cap. Or at least, it was in the original. When the track was remade for Mario Kart Tour, hills were added into the background that look similar to those found in the backgrounds of Rock Mountain and 3DS Mario Circuit. So wherever those tracks can be found, I'm sure this one can as well. Kalamari Desert is a really interesting one, as despite continuing the Food Natural feature naming scheme we've seen since Super Mario World, this name is entirely original to the English localization. Its Japanese name translates instead to Dry Desert. And if that sounds familiar to you, then you've probably played Paper Mario 64, as that's also the name of the desert found in Chapter 2 of that game. Both deserts even prominently feature a railroad. These were clearly meant to be the same location, even if Mario Kart wound up releasing well before Paper Mario. Also, while I'm here, I'll mention that the English name is partially a reference to the Kalahari Desert, a real-world location found in southern Africa. Moo Moo Farm, on the other hand, doesn't have much going for it. It's a farm, full of Moo Moos, which are just regular cows. The most importance this track has really comes from the continual references to it in later Mario Kart games. Wario Stadium is a racing track designed by Wario himself, likely funded by his recent treasure hunting endeavors. Interestingly, the manual makes it clear that it's meant as a motocross track, which makes me think of Excitebike. Given that Wario would later become heavily associated with dead retro Nintendo series via the WarioWare games, I wonder if this is the start of that trend. Royal Raceway is an extremely easy course to place. You see that? That's Peach's castle, as originally seen in Mario 64, but returning again in many other titles. DK's Jungle Parkway is stated to take place in DK's hometown in the Japanese manual. Given that the ape appears to have grown up on DK Isle, that must be where this track takes place as well. With that, you'd think that Yoshi Valley would take place on Yoshi's Island. It only seems like a natural conclusion to draw, and I want to agree, but I can't. Once again, the Japanese manual becomes relevant, as it states that the location's connection to Yoshi is unknown. If the place were on Yoshi's Island, I feel like that connection would be fairly clear and obvious. The fact that it's questioned seems to me like it was found somewhere completely unrelated to the Yoshi. When the track returned in Mario Kart 8, signs depicted it as a wild Yoshi sanctuary. And this gets us through the racing tracks, and leaves us with just the 3 remaining battle courses. And unfortunately, I don't have much to say about them. Big Donut appears to be in the middle of an ocean of lava, so it could be somewhere in the Koopa Kingdom, much like the Bowser's Castle stages, but could just as easily be in a cavern like Lethal Lava Land. There just isn't enough to go off of. Block Fort and Double Deck leave me equally perplexed. I can tell you the first one takes place in an ocean or lake, but that's really the extent of it. They don't look visibly similar to anything else we've seen in Mario, and honestly were probably constructed exclusively for the Mario Kart races. A bit of a disappointing ending, I think, but that's what I have. That said, if you have any bright ideas to connect these tracks to other locations in the series, I would love to hear them. Now for our timeline. Per the rule we established in the last kart video, Mario needs to be associated with the relevant racers and tracks before they're visited for the race. As such, this needs to occur after Mario is reintroduced to Wario, befriends DK, and has visited Dry Desert, likely in Paper Mario. This does come into conflict with my assumption of Koopa Troopa Beach being near Isle Delfino. However, we have even more concrete evidence placing that game after this one. Flood's timeline in Super Mario Sunshine mentions this game, placing it between Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. This seems direct enough to divert the rules in this instance. With all this in mind, the most viable timeline location, in my eyes at least, is directly after the events of Super Mario 64, and thus right before Donkey Kong Country 2. If you have another idea of where this game would slot in, I would love to hear it. And that's it for this video. I'm always surprised with how much information I can pull out of these racing games. And they tend to be a nice respite from those games that have actual storylines. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.